Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Queen Level Conversations. We are back, new and improved. It's been a while. How about that, Dr. Chrissy? It's been a while. You
It has. Time is moving. Life is happening.
Yes, it is. So I'm so glad to be here before you guys live. I'm excited about our topic. And our topic for today is the enigma of wanting what you can't have. So we'll talk about that shortly. And we can do short introductions and reintroduce ourselves to people. My name is Dion. Well, you call me Nurse D, and I'm one of the queens on Queen Level Conversations. And we have Dr. Chrissy here. Do you want to tell them a little bit more about yourself?
I am known as Dr. C. I'm excited to be here. Known as a clinician, but God has called me to do all things.
And we
So,
can do all things through Christ that strengthens us, can't we?
absolutely.
So, yep, I'm bringing greetings from D. Wallace Health Promotion and Wellness. And this is Dr. C, our transformational coach. And before we get started on the topic, I just want to do a little health segment. That's what we do at the beginning. And I just want to throw a number out there, 120 over 80. 120 over 80 is a blood pressure. And that's a wonderful blood pressure. And so I just wanted to put that number out there to just kind of just throw it out there. We talk more about, I talk about health. That's what I do. Health and wellness coach. I'm also a nurse, so I'm well trained and versed on it. But I just wanted to throw that number out there because hypertension is definitely a serious disease process, and it's all about monitoring your blood pressure. So that's the ideal blood pressure that you want to have if you are hypertensive, or if you are if you don't have hypertension but you lead into it. It's a good idea to know what your numbers are, to speak with your doctor, your provider. Make sure you change your diet. That's a whole nother conversation, but I wanted to throw that number out there, 120 over 80, which is an excellent number. Let that be your goal if you have hypertension, to get it to that point or lower. So that's just an ideal number. So I just wanted to throw that out there real quick during my health segment, and we'll go ahead and get started on the topic. So, so um so let's talk about the enigma of wanting what we cannot have. We'll start with the nature of desire. What does that mean to you, Dr. C? Just hearing that.
Well, for one, we always want something we can't have.
Yeah. Part of life.
Whatever it is, a lot of times it seems the appetite grows for something that we cannot have. But when you talk about the nature of desire, I just think it's natural to have desires for things. I think the question is it can it be a reality? Can what you desire be a reality? Because it's good to desire, but it depends on your state of mind. It depends on how you position yourself, and where does desire take us?
As I make that face. Absolutely. Yeah, well, because wanting what you can't have, that's just like I'll just use it as a going to a health thing, a diabetic. A diabetic probably wants sweets, but they can't have it. You know what I'm saying? And they desire it.
Exactly.
And so it's kind of hard to have what you desire something, but you can't have it. So it's almost like for me, my in my mind, if I want something, I feel like I should be able to get it. And so when it comes to desires and desires of the heart want what the heart wants. When you look at it from that standpoint. So how do you better balance that? Because it's easy to get caught up in, just kind of just doing it because you want it, you desire it, whether it be eating, shopping, relationship, things like that. I guess it's like how do you balance that? Because it's a
It,
reality.
yeah. It's crazy because the Bible talks about the heart being wicked.
Yeah.
It can't be trusted. But I think the balance sometimes, depending on what the desires is, I mean, like you brought up the health issue. I mean, I would prefer fried chicken. I
Sure.
would prefer a lot of things, but it feeds my emotions because an emotional eater. But in order for me to live,
Yes.
it has to be mind over matter because I still have the desire.
Yeah. Sure. And
Desiring, I see a nice hot, pecan chocolate chip cookie. I want it
right. Right.
because that's what I like. We
Right.
want what we like. But
Right.
sometimes what we like is not good for us.
And why?
And so our heart desires what we like, but what does that mean?
Yeah, I think I know for me, and if anybody here want to type something in the chat if you're here live with us, I think for me it means sometimes I feel like I'm depriving myself, and when I'm depriving myself, it makes me feel away. And so some days I'd be like, okay. And some days I'd be like, well, no, I'm going to eat it anyway. I'm going to do it anyway because I'm tired of depriving myself. And I think a lot of times people think like that. And that's why
Yeah,
we end up in the conditions that we're in, the spaces, the predicaments, and things like that. I think it's just better, like you said, the mind over matter thing. It is mind over matter, but we have to master that. And that's
absolutely. It's a practice.
yes, it's a practice. You
It-
can't just do it. People say, "Oh, mind over matter." You saying it, but do you really do it? That's the bigger thing, I guess. And what we want to, I guess, get from it is how we manage that mind over matter, and it makes sense, and we master it, and we don't just jump out there on a whim or because we feel like it, or we woke up today and said, "This is what we're gonna do, and this is what I'm gonna do." You know what I'm saying? Instead of thinking
exactly.
about the consequences, because it's really about the consequences of it.
Absolutely, it is. I mean, it's like dating. I see somebody that instantly I get this feeling and this attraction and all of this, but how real is it? How authentic is it? And so I go after my desire, but then he a fool.
Yeah,
But that don't mean that attraction or desire is still not there. And why not? Why are we attracted to things that we desire but it's not good for us?
sure. That and I think when you talk about relationships, because that's really what it really boils down to, is like um the longing, the love and the longing of it. When you maybe desire somebody that they're taking or you're taking, but you still feel like, okay, I still want to be with that person. It's like, how do you uh balance that longing, that because sometimes it can overtake you. I know for me in the past, it was a lot, and it can overtake you, and then now you're trying to figure out how to pull yourself back from the longing and you went in, do it. Now you overtaken with it. Now you're trying to pull yourself back. So that's a whole nother set of problems. So with that longing part, like how do we balance that? You know what I'm saying?
Well,
Like, how
I
do you?
think I think it's getting to the core. Are you longing for what you think you want, or is it a void that has been there for hundreds of years?
Sure.
You know what I mean? When you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the need to feel safe, the need to feel love, and if that has not been experienced to the degree where you feel healthy and whole and safe, then those voids grow.
Yeah.
And then, okay, me and you kicking it, we laughing, we talking, it's filling the void. But it's sometimes like the person that's addicted to crack chasing the dragon because
Right.
that first hit felt
Yep.
so good
Yep.
that I keep seeking because I'm looking to fulfill a void.
Yeah. And same with the heroin addict. They
Same with the
they when they
hearing
get
at
that
it,
first hit, they chase it, and they never get it,
chasing the dragon.
but they chasing the dragon. Yeah. I'm glad you brought it up about the voice, because a lot of people have like voids and missing pieces in their lives and stuff like that, and then they just so then they feed on those longings and try to fulfill things and a lot of our stuff happen, it starts with childhood. That's just the reality of a lot of things, a lot of the longings, a lot of the voids, and we try to fill them with other things throughout our life, and then we chase, like you said, chasing the dragon. It's like, what am I really after? Like, what am I really longing for? Do I want the hugs from this person, or do I miss the hugs that I didn't get from my mama or my daddy when I was younger? So
And probably so.
yeah, yeah, and
Like I do Mondays, sometimes I do the healing and trauma group on my
mhm,
job, and we did the ACE, the adverse childhood experiences. And one of the things we discover if something we didn't get or something we experienced at 12 that there was no conversation about, there was no support about it, we more than likely, we've grown physically, we've grown in some wisdom areas based upon what we've experienced, but emotionally we're still that 12, 13-year-old
Yeah,
that was damaged
sure.
based upon the trauma. And
Sure.
all trauma is not abuse and sexual, is something that stunt my growth
Yeah.
based upon my development that I found to be painful.
Yeah. And
And so you looking for something and you're going in circles to get it.
yeah, I know for me, I remember everything from when I was like 3 or 4 years old. So, and that's a good thing, but it's also, it can be something. And so for me, it's like as a little girl, I longed to have a sister because I was the only girl, and so I found myself, because I longed for a sister, and then I just kind of isolated, because I was around a bunch of boys, but I've always longed for that sister because I was like, I need somebody in my life to understand, what I'm going through. But for me, it just, over the years, it taught me how to just kind of be off on my own and isolate. And that's not a good thing, because sometimes when we do that, we miss the opportunity to have people be there for us or things like that, and fulfill maybe that longing that's been there a long time. So I think that that's like a big deal for me, where isolating, but also longing for someone to see about me. But if they don't know that I need to be, sought after, then they're not necessarily going to do it. So yeah, I think, and it spills over into our relationships when we get with people who, everybody probably have done it, if they want to be honest about it, have gotten with men or women that was not appropriate, and wanting what you can't have, and you get involved in it, and you think, or you say, oh, I know what this is, and then the more you involved in it, the more you realize you don't know what it is, because now you all caught up, right, and you're longing for this situation that can't be, and it just becomes, and then the mind over matter thing just probably don't even come into play at that point. The mind starts traveling and doing stuff and thinking, and it just goes into a spiral down thing. So I guess my question to you is, if you was talking to somebody, if somebody came to you and they were talking about these things that we're talking about, and individually, how would you kind of help them navigate through that part, with
Well, it
that?
depends on the circumstances, and I'm pretty direct. Is I don't leave many options or choices. It's life or death.
Sure.
And so, I mean, how bad do you want to change? How bad do you want something to be different? And you have to take your thoughts and mind off how you feel
Yeah.
and pursue what you want in terms of seeking more positive outcomes. And
Yeah.
it's a fight.
Yeah, it is.
I had that conversation at work today. One of the ladies been clean 30 years, and she was saying how when a person come off the street, they don't they don't have the coping skills for certain things, and so they act out or whatever. And I said, this is true. However, a made up mind is a made up mind, and if you are not headed that way, your mind just not made up. That's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. I get it. And so it's like that, when the Bible speaks about cast down all imaginations, and I want to talk about the allure of the forbidden fruit, because if we're not careful with our minds will take us somewhere, and we'll start imagining this is what it is, this is what it could be, and then it start taking you down that spiral, that rabbit hole of forbidden things. And it can turn that psychological emotional part of it can turn bad if one is
Yeah.
careful, what I'm saying, without
It's
the,
already bad. It's already bad.
yeah,
By the time you go down that rabbit hole, I remember I had a client, she kept saying, I don't want to have a nervous breakdown. I'm like, ma'am, you already there.
yeah, you have
Look
it,
at the circumstances.
right.
Look at your reactions. Look at how you're responding. Look at how you're feeling. Look at your decisions, and it'll tell you the state you in. The
Yeah.
problem is, who wants to face that?
Yeah.
because when you really face it, you got to do something different.
Yeah, for sure. Because at the end of the day, it's like you have to get sick and tired of being sick and tired.
And that's what they say in recovery. You got to get so sick and tired of being sick and tired to whereas there's nothing left. You hit rock bottom.
Yeah. And I think for I know for me, because I have been in dark places, right? And for me, it was hard to even want to hit the bottom because when you're taught that failure is not an option, because you're taught, I know I was, it was failure is not an option, you have to succeed, but in order to succeed you have to fail. But I had to learn that along the way. So for me, hitting the bottom felt like the worst thing ever. It felt like I have really failed at life. You know what I'm saying? Like, why am I
I
here?
do. I do.
And I was just like, wow, how do I get out of this? Right. But I learned through my therapy, and just life period, that's okay. That's all a part of it, and that in order to you got to fall down to get back up. That's just how it goes. And it's like nothing stays up. Eventually it's going to come down, especially
And
without that normal, balanced thought process. It's prone to happen. So it's just about the coping mechanisms and the tools we need to be okay when a relationship don't work out, or we don't get what we want, or we don't get who we want. Instead of being what's what I'm gonna use? I say aggressive about it, learning that okay, it didn't work out. It's time to move on. So what do I need to do?
I think I started thinking in my mind. I remember the last time I was in something that crazy, I almost went to prison.
I
So
get it.
I could go to prison. So that scared me. Like, I don't ever want to be like that. Not to say I had not been in other emotional things, but I had not gone back to that state where I'm so engaged that I just lose it on somebody.
Yeah.
And so because I'm greater than the situation.
Sure.
And so I had to say and learn, and of course it was a spiritual transformation. If I don't have it, God, it's because you don't want me to have it.
Yeah. But it,
Now
it,
the
it took a
problem
moment
is,
it took a moment to get there though, right?
it was a journey. It took divorce. It took not having no money. It took not knowing how I'm gonna pay my bills. It took all that for me to surrender. I had to surrender.
Mm-hmm.
Like, whatever it is, it's all right. If I ain't got no money, fine. If I ain't got no man, fine. If I gotta stay in a shoe on the corner, whatever.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
just make me who you want me to be. Because this route,
Yeah.
somebody going to jail, somebody gonna get hurt, and then what?
And I think people need to learn when they're at capacity. That's the thing. People need to understand, learn themselves enough to know when they're at capacity. I know for me, um, over the years, I have definitely mastered that understanding of when I'm at capacity, whether it's in a relationship, whether it's with a job, like with the job I just left, I was at capacity. I had to leave. I knew that there was no going back, and I guess I was at the bottom. Like you say, I hit the bottom, and I was like, I have to go. I'm at capacity. So I think it's about learning what your capacity is to with life and relationships, and understanding that everything don't always work out how we want, but trusting the process, like you said, and trusting in God and surrendering and understanding that He will direct us and He'll order our steps, but we got to be willing to understand that we are in that space, because it's easier said than done
It is.
when you feel away and you're like, okay, you can, no, it's easier said than done. And then people start saying man over matter. What does that mean when I'm at capacity? You know what I'm saying? And so I think we need to be more understanding in that area and not be less judgmental when we are in those type of states. So we're in those situations because we all one situation away from something. We can all be in a situation where we can want what we can't have, and then we at that part where we're casting down, we're not casting down our imagination, so our imagination is just running totally wild, and we didn't told ourselves, no, this is going to be how I want it to be. And I'm a strong believer and a firm believer that you can will yourself into something or will yourself out of something. So that's me though. I don't know. That's not law and it's not Bible, but you can will yourself into a situation or out of one. It just depends on where
Well,
you.
yeah, you can. I think you can, but you can also choose to be in something and choose not to be,
Yeah. Yeah.
depending on what it is that you want for your life. And one of the things I've learned is that no, there's no guarantees. It's like if I choose this,
Yeah.
I don't know what the outcome may be. If I choose the other, I don't know what the outcome be. So I choose me
Sure.
because
That's really the best choice at this point, you know.
I
Um,
can't I can't worry about, and even feelings. I remember one night, going through divorce and being I had never been by myself, especially when my daughter went to school. And God was like, so what, you feel lonely? Take your tail to sleep. It's just an emotion.
right.
Like, you're making it more than what it is. It's not a negative, it's an emotion. So how are you going to nurture your emotions? Because most of it is that.
Yeah. Yeah. And they used to tell us growing up, don't wear your feelings on your sleeve. And that's a true fact, you know. But then on the flip side of that, you can become so hard to, you know,
Right.
you are
So
reachable. You have to chisel with a hammer to chisel this stuff away. You know what I'm saying? So it got to be that balance. And I guess that's when you I guess we talk about getting to the fulfillment and the acceptance of not getting what you long for, what you can't have. You know what I'm saying? Like we have to figure out ways, like you said, when you understand it about you surrender, you understood that you had to surrender and give it to God to have that fulfillment and that acceptance that this is not what it's gonna be, right? And so, but it took you a while to get there, right? So, and you're extremely strong person. We strong people, but so we can kind of figure it out based on what we've been through. But some people have a harder time than others. You
well,
know.
I didn't figure it out. I didn't even know that I needed to go to the next level till everything fell apart.
Sure.
So it wasn't something that I thought was needed until I realized you really don't trust God the way you say you do or the way you act you do.
Sure.
You're educated, but emotionally there are some things you still need to work out. And at this stage in life, what is it going to be?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so you don't get everything you want. My mother used to say that you're not going to have everything you want. And I used to be like, well, why not?
right. Because absolutely. Why?
We
Let's.
know as women, one man really ain't enough. But guess what?
Yeah.
What is it that you need so that you can be content and that you can have some joy in a situation? Because I'm not, I can't be everything to a man
Right.
and vice versa.
Right.
So what does it look like for where you are? And I think in that stage of fantasy and
Yes.
reality, and what's the reality of the situation? I might not feel good about the reality, but I have to accept it.
Yeah. That was a major what you just said, and that was real and that was truth. Is that one person can't do it all, and I think
It
people
can't.
they get so caught up in that because that's what social norms say or make you feel like, and so it makes you feel a way when you understand it, because you understand it, right? You know that one person, or you can't fulfill everything in that person, but you just try to get that balance and accept that part of it. And basically it's about negotiables and non-negotiables at that.
Absolutely.
That's just either it is or it isn't. If it's negotiable, yes. If it's non-negotiable, no. And if it's non-negotiable to the point where it's affecting it, you can't do it anyway. It's not conducive. And I think reality TV and social media and all of those platforms paint a false narrative of that, because they look at people and be like, oh, they're so happy, they've been happy for this amount of time, and he's so wonderful and she's so wonderful. No, that's what they show you, that's what you see. But the reality of it is they human beings, they go through things just like everybody else. But I think it sends out that false narrative of how relationships can be, and you could get what you want even if you shouldn't have it. You're going to make sure, like you said, you ask why can't I have it? Well, it's reasons behind everything, I said. So I think it's just understanding who you are as a person. I had to
That's
learn to
the
understand
key.
who I was as a person. And once I learned who I was as a person, my whys minimized. I didn't ask why as much because I understood better. and I understood me better. So I just think it's really about understanding who you are, even when it comes to wanting what you can't have and going through the stages and going to acceptance and going through that, getting to that acceptance and fulfillment part. Is just understanding who you are as a person and learning you. And then you'll be able to kind of progress forward. So,
Yeah, it's about at this stage in life, especially in our 50s, going
sure.
into the later 50s. This not even
Yeah.
we going over the curve.
Yeah.
And so I really don't have time for fantasy,
Absolutely.
because who I am naturally without Jesus, I'm gonna go for the fantasy.
Ooh, aren't we all
So
though?
I already know that. So
Because the
I have to
fantasy is
keep
better anyway in our
I
head.
have to keep my eye on the
Sure.
prize. I have to
Sure.
stay in my assignment.
Sure.
And my assignment and my purpose keeps me in reality.
Yeah.
Because
Tell me about
I will go for fantasy, feeling, desire, all of that. Because I like to feel away.
yeah. If
So
we're all honest, if we're all honest with it, the majority of us, 99.9% of us feel that exact same way. Most people won't say it out loud, but
like
we
I
all.
just did. Look.
Yeah, they won't. That's what I'm saying. Like you just did. But that's real because that's the reality of it. Of course we gonna go for the fantasy and things like that because it feels good, it sounds good, it looks good, it probably tastes good, it probably all of that good, right? But that's why it's called a fantasy because it's not all that. All of that is not what really is going on. But we'll go for that because it's easier. It's easier to do it, and then after the fact, you're like, I'll deal with it later. And then when you're dealing with it later, you balled up in a knot because, curled up like a baby because you decided, oh, I'll deal with it later and I'm going to do it anyway. And now you're paying the consequences of it with your emotions and your
Your
mindset and
mindset and
all
your
of that.
your mental
All of it.
state,
Yes, I know
your
of what I talk about
personal.
because I've been there. I've been there, and I think at this stage of my life, I'm okay with about being transparent and sharing these things with people because people need to understand. Because sometimes they feel like they're alone. Something's wrong with them. So it's all
But
about
the thing is, if you wake up and you ask yourself the question, where do I go from here? Because here is not the place. What
yeah,
do you do next?
yeah. That's the thing. That's
And
the
so it's a faith move. It's really not,
don't
because
know.
you don't know what's
You,
gonna happen on the other side.
and so that's what I'm learning. I do self-help books and listen to stuff, and it was talking about it's a book called Unf Yourself. I don't want to say the word, but unscrew yourself for the most part. But it was talking about the uncertainties and how we should need to embrace the uncertainties because there's nothing certain unless just knowing that we're gonna leave here. Everything else is uncertain, but we don't want to accept the uncertainties because it makes us feel uncomfortable. And it's really about, and I posted it, it's really about accepting everything and expecting nothing. And so when you do that, you minimize that whole little, it all ties together with the fantasy and the thinking, the frame of mind. It's like you don't expect, if you're not expecting anything, then you won't get let down. It's hard, it's easier said than done. Again, that goes to that mind over matter thing. So I'm working on that. It's like not expecting things. I don't do things for people to expect things in return. I do things for people and do good deeds because that's who I am and that's how God made me. And that's what I'm required to do per him. But sometimes you do want to hear something good, or receive something good. That's just human instinct. So people, they get caught up in that. And so when you start expecting too much, that's when the letdown start happening.
And
So
that's true, but I think that's why, of course, I'm biblically and I go to that because that's the foundation of keeping my mind clear.
sure, sure,
And he says, don't trust people
yeah,
because they will let you down. But
sure,
I can expect God to do what He say.
absolutely. And that's what
And
he's been
so,
saying to me. Excuse me.
but even when God don't do what you want Him to do, there's still an adjustment.
Yeah, yeah,
And
because
so
we
life is full of adjustments and changes and readjustments and changes. Otherwise, you just stay where you at.
absolutely, absolutely. And you can't grow if you're not willing to change. And God can't bless you how he need to bless you or want to bless you if you're not willing to change. And I learned that way back when I stayed. We talked about this when I was at the VA for so many years, right? And I used to be like, oh, this job ain't it. I'm going back, whatever, right? And I was at the VA because I was taught work, retire, work, retire. And it took me 17 years to leave there because I was not content there, but I was trying to stay because it was like, I'm supposed to work and retire, but it's a new day, right? It was a new time. So I had to understand that in order for him to move in my life, I had to be willing to change. And he said, hey, I'm waiting on you. I have so much for you, but you have been holding you back. So I learned at that point that in order for God to do what he needs to do, I have to be willing to change. And once I moved out there and stepped out there, I didn't look back. And so much has occurred in that time that it's just unbelievable and remarkable. Some things that I wouldn't have done if I would have stayed there, I was able to do, you know. So I definitely can appreciate that, you know. So
But
uh
what do we do? What do we do? Because, we knew or always knew we would accomplish things.
sure.
But what do you do when your personal desire goes unfulfilled? When you just, no matter what you accomplish, no matter how much money you got in the bank, no matter how many times you hit the byways and highways, when the lights go out, it's like, but I still feel like something is missing.
Yeah. When I have, so for me, when I have gone through that, I I started going through that I tried to go down that journey of self-discovery and tried to understand why I did so much for others, but I didn't do it for myself. And so I had to dig deep to see why I was even like that. And because I'm a giver and because I'm supposed to take care of people, I taught myself to sacrifice me for everybody else. So when I got to that point, I was like, okay, what do I do, God? How do I get out of this? Like, how do I move forward? Because now I felt like I was in a place. And what God said to me, the Spirit spoke to me and said, just trust me. That was it. Just trust me. And so I had to learn to really trust and depend on God. I've known God my whole life and I've been in church and blah, blah, blah. Right. But it was times where I really did not solely trust God. So when I would go through things, it would just be like I would just be stuck. I would just be stuck in a place. And I just remember asking God not to leave me there. And he said that he wouldn't for me to trust him. So I think it's really about, again, capacity. Where's your capacity to do better? Where's your capacity where you say enough is enough? You know, so that was from my experience. You know, if I could give anybody any advice, it would just be like, listen to yourself, though, understand who you are and be okay with yourself, embrace yourself, and be okay with who you are, and let God do the work. So that's that on that. I hope I answered the question. It's
That's also easier said than done.
what
Be-
to let God be God.
Yeah,
No, I didn't
because
always let.
we
It wasn't easy because I didn't always. I'm sorry, it's something here. I didn't
no,
always let
I'm
God be
saying
God.
generally for the person that knows this but still don't act on it. You know what I mean? Because we know, but then God, I'm really afraid. Even
Yeah,
though I say I trust you, but I'm really afraid
true.
because I'm kind of content on what I'm doing. At the same time, I'm discontent
Yeah,
on where I'm at.
right.
So, how do I really just decide to allow you to love me enough so that I can do what you call me to do and let the chips fall where they may?
I don't know. I have to get back with you on that.
I'm just saying
Yeah, I mean, yeah. To be
it
honest,
it's hard. I just remember and I always reference this because that's the only long relationship I had was when I was married. And so I just, you want the white picket fence, you want the kids to grow, you want happiness and joy in this loving relationship. And then one day you like, but that's not what it is.
yeah, yeah,
It's really not that. Like, what do I do? You know
yeah.
what I mean? And I heard guys say, you live or die where you at.
Oh my God. That is so, oh my goodness. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's in any live or die where
Or
you at.
liver diary there. Yeah. And I just remember being in that state, which you was talking about. And I just remember, it's funny you said that because I was like, God, please don't let me die here.
Yeah.
Please don't let me die in this place, in this space that I was in. It was so dark, right? I felt like I couldn't move. I felt like I could barely talk, right? And I was like, I just remember begging God not to leave me there. And he was like, I'm not, but you need to do your part. So I had to figure out a way to get up, right? As weak as I was, or whatever I was going through. But I just remember thinking, I don't want to die here. Right. I said it like, please. And he said, you won't, but you gotta get up. So I think it is easier said than done. But sometimes when we on our backs, because I was on my back literally, and we can't do nothing but look up, it's like, okay, it's only up from here. That's really, it's only up. You all the way at the bottom, it's only up from here. So that's some real stuff too. That's
I,
like
I I know,
that's
like
for
God, I
real.
thought I trust you, but I don't know
Yeah, I don't
because
know. Yeah.
I feel stagnated. And when you look at, the role of fantasy and imagination and all of that, some of that is what has kept us in sick situations,
Yeah.
mentally, emotionally. I mean, it's nothing wrong with dreaming, or having big goals or wanting to become great. But when you talk about fantasy, what does that even mean? That's an imagination that I didn't create it in
Yeah.
my mind only,
A
because it
whole
ain't even
scenario.
what's
Yeah.
going on.
It's a
And
whole
so
scenario. We write a whole
I
story
done
in our
created
head.
a
It's just
whole,
like, yeah,
picture
a
of something
novel. A
that's
novel.
not there. It's not
we
even there.
we done wrote a whole novel about this imagination or
It's
this
not even there. And
relationship.
so
Not even there. Yeah.
one
We
of the
that.
things I started to do, and I started years ago, but I really started studying the scripture on the mind,
Yeah.
because I know I'm crazy without Christ. It's a given.
Yeah.
It's a
We
given.
all are.
So let me learn about how to keep my mind,
Sure. Sure.
because
Because
I am capable of anything.
oh, I already know. I already know. I know I'm like that. And I always say, even when I'm teaching, I'll be like, if the mind is sick, the body will be sick. So if you don't have your mind right, you're not gonna take care of yourself. Your decision making process is gonna be all over the place. And you are gonna end up in those states where you are like thinking stuff that ain't really a reality. So it's really about managing your mind. And that's easier said than done,
It
but
is.
a big deal, like talking to yourself in a positive light, trying to, instead of saying, oh, I'm ugly, I'm fat, I'm stupid, I'm dumb, what I'm saying? It's like, no, I can do this. I am wonderful. I am. We have to dig it out, right? Some people dig it out because when you're in that state, it's harder. It's harder to say that. It's harder to see the beauty in yourself.
Yeah, it's a
Harder.
stronghold.
It's definitely a stronghold. And so it's like you gotta talk to yourself. People's like, if you talk to yourself, you're crazy. No, if you don't talk to yourself, you're crazy, because you need to talk yourself out of whatever is you're in that is prohibiting you or keeping you from where you need to go. You
Absolutely.
so I tell people
Absolutely.
that all the time. And so I talk to myself a lot because I know it's easier for me to be like, okay, I don't want to be a woe is me person, but I always tell myself like, it's you here for a reason. So why is that? Why does God have you here? And it may look like this, but it's really that. Right. So that's why I have to keep my imagination in check about a lot of things, professionally, spiritually, personally and relationship. I have to keep my mind in check because if I don't, it's easy to just because it's I don't know why it's like that, but it's easier for us to just go to the negative and the woe is me than to because we think, okay, let me think of some positive stuff. Why is it so hard for us to do that? You know what I'm saying?
Because it's not a practice.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a, like you talk about exercise or not eating the right, eating the right things that have to become a practice. It's
Sure.
the same thing for your mental state. It has to be a practice,
Yeah.
because that's why when things happen and when you haven't made that a practice, things overtake your mind.
It does.
It
It
overtakes because you don't have the mental equity
Yeah.
to cope
Yeah.
because you ain't put nothing there.
Sure. And that's why when people's coping mechanisms aren't good, it's because they didn't put that into practice. I've learned that just in being in nursing and being in mental health and trying to help people, and you as you talk to them, you realize they haven't even said I'm beautiful to myself ever. You know what I'm saying? And they've never heard it, so they don't feel it. So they see themselves in a whole nother way. So yeah, I tell people like take care of that mind. Take care of that your outlook, your positive outlook. I said when I struggle, I'll be like, okay, Dion, this is what you need to do. You know, like I make sure that when I go to sleep, I'm watching something funny on TV. You know what I'm saying? To keep my mind right when I lay down, because if not, it can be all over the place. And so that's just a practice for me to kind of help me, you know. And you, I know you look at me, you be like, there you go laughing again when I be watching Living Single like I never saw it before. But it makes me laugh, it makes me happy, and it keeps me, you know, in a way where I don't have to be feeling all, you know, down about whatever is going on in my life at that time. So I make it a practice to do things that can help me stay, you know, stay positive and stay focused. So, anything else before we close everything out? This was good. This was really good
Well, I
because,
think it is the last talking point: finding fulfillment and acceptance.
yeah.
What do you need to be fulfilled, and where does it come from?
Well, I think it comes from within, because I think we look for it in other people, or we look for it in things, and then we feel like when we realize, okay, we got those things, and those people may or may not be around. It's like now what? Because we still unfulfilled because internally we haven't addressed, again, going back to where it started from the beginning, whether it's childhood or whatever. I just think it's internal. I think it's we gotta deal with us first before we can deal with other people, or we gotta address us before we can address other people or other things. Because
I agree.
it's easy to point the finger and in relationships, especially in relationships, and be like, it was your fault. No, it was our fault. You know what I'm saying? Especially a person who has um gone through a divorce, right? And I didn't totally blame him, but I didn't focus enough on myself and the part that I played. And so it
Yeah,
took a while, right? So once I started realizing, when I talked to him and he said some things to me, I understood that I needed to address some things about me, and I needed to administer some apologies for my part that I played in that. And so when I heard it, I was like, wow, if you're still talking about it, it was something that I did. So it was about me just addressing myself and saying, okay, that was not cool, you know, and I
right.
apologize for that. Not saying that it will undo it. Of course it can't undo it, and it may or may not change things, but it was just me addressing who I was and understanding that my role that I played in it.
Exactly. And I think even saying that, when you look at your own suffering, um, what role did I play in my own suffering? And sometimes that's hard because it's easy to say, well, if you wouldn't have said that, or if you wouldn't have did that, but what have I done to myself
Sure.
that I'm so unfulfilled? You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And so I think being accountable to those things and forgiving yourself,
Sure. Sure.
I think it's a level of forgiveness to find fulfillment and acceptance.
Yeah.
And I think self forgiveness is harder than anything
Yeah, it
else.
is. Yeah, it is.
And
Because
so,
when you start looking at that, you know, when you start seeing the roles that you played and maybe hurting people or doing things, it is harder to say, dang, you know, you start critiquing yourself and putting yourself down instead of saying, okay, I did that. And apologize to yourself for not forgiving yourself sooner, for not addressing it sooner. You know what I'm saying? Not seeing it sooner instead of carrying it over and over again. Because a lot of times, if you don't even forgive yourself, what's the odds of you being able to forgive someone else when they say or do something? It's like zero to you. Odds are you won't do it, right? So you walking around here, you really holding a grudge against yourself and other people. So you got to release the grudge on yourself in order to forgive those other people who
absolutely.
may have wronged you or said the wrong thing or did the wrong thing or didn't say this or didn't do that. You know what I'm saying? So I just think it's just really about self-examination and understanding. So
That's it. That's how you find fulfillment, taking
sure,
responsibility for
sure,
your life.
sure, 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 sure. Well, I am so glad this topic was it was deep for me, and it just kind of helped to just kind of show me different things. I think it's gonna be helpful for other people too. Like I'm excited for just doing this type of stuff and talking through it and talking it out. Because as we help others, we help ourselves. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
It's really like therapy for ourselves because we talking through it and talking out loud and being not being ashamed to say where we were, even where we are, and just try to get where we going. So
Right.
I can appreciate this. That's why I appreciate this being called queen level conversations, because we got these queens on here, we doing our thing. They said we started from the bottom, now we here. We know where we came from. So we not just talking from the educated standpoint of the book says and this and that, but this is life, real life stuff and life experiences and things that we've dealt with and we're dealing with right now, and we're able to help ourselves and along with helping other people. So I think that's the blessing in doing all this. So
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm appreciative, and I'm just excited about what God is going to do next. So
Absolutely. And he's doing it.
you want to put your social media out there before we get going? If you want anybody to.
I am Dr. Chrissy Lawson on Facebook. My Instagram is Her Authentic Soul. My group is Finally I Choose Me. Teaching women how to choose themselves and let the chips fall where they may.
Amen to that. And I'm on Facebook. I'm Dion Staples Wallace. I have two Facebook pages. I think the other one is Dion Lynette. Also have D Wallace Health Promotion and Wellness, and I have All Things Nurse, my scrub page as well. And that's how, and I'm Dion the Great 13 on Instagram, and ATN Scrubs on Instagram as well. Did you give your Instagram handle?
Uh-huh. Her
Oh,
Authentic Soul.
okay. All right. Just want to make sure. And I want to thank Miss Lucretia Rogers, our producer, who's doing an excellent job. I definitely appreciate you, Miss Cree, because without you, it would be no us. So we want to thank Cree and Brave Ambition Radio Network and all of you who have tuned in. And we also want to thank Detroit CEO Media. That's also Cree's thing as well. Thank you, and
And have a good night.
God bless. Peace.